Greetings. Happy Thursday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on BlazeTV radio and podcast. My name is Steve Deace, alongside Todd Erzin and Aaron McIntyre. A couple of housekeeping things before we get started today. Well, first, I'll let you know, Theology Thursday. We've got that going for you today. We'll continue our look at kingdom politics, so you don't want to miss that. My oldest daughter, Anastasia, will be here for a little discussion about 3 non-political questions. Christopher Rufo, who has been all over the country fighting the good fight for school choice, he's got a brand new book out. We'll be talking to him at the bottom of this hour. But a couple of housekeeping items. A reminder, tomorrow, we are out of here tomorrow and Monday. You will still get an original show tomorrow. It'll be an evergreen we recorded a little while ago. As promised, we did this episode that got a ton of reaction and people loved, looking at questions for Donald Trump as a presidential candidate. Said we'd do the same thing for Ron DeSantis. We are going to do that. That will be tomorrow's episode. Monday will just be, I'm giving these guys the day off totally so that they can have a long weekend. I'm heading out to the SoCal area to do a couple events. Godspeak Church in the Burbank area, Chino Hills, Calvary Chapel in the Chino Hills area. A couple events for Nefarious on Saturday and Sunday. Amy and I are going to take a day on Friday to kind of do our own thing and relax. So you guys get a bit of a summer break while we are gone. And if you're in that area and you want to come by and say hello, I hope you get a chance to do that. I'd love to see you. Also, want to give a shout out. If I don't do it now, I know you wanted me to do this on August 31st, but if I don't do this now, I will forget. You can't send me something this far in advance. It'll just get buried in my inbox. I get 500 emails a day.
And if you tell me to remind you, I will forget.
Yes, exactly. So I'm just going to do this right now. All right. Jim Delcine turns 80 years old on Thursday, August 31st. All right. Your daughter, Carly, wants to make sure you get a birthday shout out, and I want to make sure it doesn't get buried in my inbox. For example, a paying speaking engagement got emailed to me last week, and I noticed after cleaning out 200 emails yesterday, it got buried in my inbox. Okay, so I want to make sure that doesn't happen, so I'm just going to do it to Jim now. Happy birthday, Jim, a month ahead of time. Also, Melissa Gehring is celebrating her 50th birthday. We wanted to, and so we're the same age. I'll be celebrating 50 a week from tomorrow. So happy birthday to Melissa. And I believe there was one more. Never miss a show. Neither does my sister and brother-in-law. They happen to share a birth month with you. My sister is the 12th. My brother-in-law is the 26th. Please give them a shout out on your show. Their names are David and Marilyn Tucker. So David and Marilyn Tucker, happy birthday to you guys as well. So I have done what I was asked and required to do. I have been nice to you for a few minutes so that now we may proceed with the rest of the program.
The beatings may continue.
Until morale improves, yes. And let's just get the niceties out of the way now so we can get to the good part, the beatings.
Happy birthday, happy birthday.
Yes.
All right, back to the beatings.
Yes.
Got a lot of problems with you people.
That's right. And a team is only as good as its weakest link. Indeed. This is the show that began the year with a noose on stage and will end it with a gun.
It's your birthday, you get one less lash.
That's exactly right. Am I not merciful? Indeed. And with that, here is Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by another whistleblower. Joseph Ziegler is a homosexual and a Democrat. He's also an employee of the IRS and is now the second whistleblower to come forward alleging the agency stonewalled efforts to look into Joe and Hunter Biden's shady business deals. He testified in front of the U.S. House yesterday, but before doing that, he talked to Catherine Herridge at CBS News and more succinctly explained why he's blowing the whistle.
Why did you want to interview Hunter Biden's adult children?
So a lot of the business deductions, expenses related to the adult children.
Did you get the approvals?
So we never received the approvals to talk to those people.
What did the assistant U.S. attorney tell you?
That's going to get us into hot water.
Is that in the IRS handbook, avoiding hot water?
No, but I mean, I was asking to do these certain things, and roadblock after roadblock was put up in front of me.
Also during that hearing, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene had a little episode of show and tell displaying printouts of some of the sex tapes Hunter Biden made with prostitutes that were found on his laptop.
Should we be displaying this, Mr. Chairman, in the committee?
Lady's time's expired.
Should we be displaying this, says Congressman Jamie Raskin? Just wait till you find out what's in school libraries. Anyway, that was a fun show yesterday on Capitol Hill, but nobody's going to be held accountable, so moving on. Mitt Romney, your thoughts?
I just like hot dogs. It's the best, meat there is, without question.
Elsewhere on Capitol Hill, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. testified this morning to a House committee about censorship when Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz proceeded to censor him.
I'd like to raise a point of order.
Lady can state a point of order.
Point of order pursuant to House Rule 11, Clause 2, which Mr. Kennedy is violative of. I move that we move into executive session because Mr. Kennedy has repeatedly made despicable anti-Semitic and anti-Asian comments as recently as last week.
In other news, the Biden administration is instating a 10-year ban, supposedly, on funding to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, citing the lab's lack of transparency and following federal guidelines for safety and security. According to Adweek, Donald Trump's town hall the other night with Sean Hannity barely outperformed Jesse Waters' brand new show on the network. The Trump town hall garnered around 2.8 million viewers, while Waters' new show brought in around 2.3 million. Speaking of Fox, Ron DeSantis was on Fox and Friends this morning with his wife, Casey.
I'm not running to be somebody. I'm running to do something.
That sounds familiar.
For is make or break for this country. This country is in decline. And I'm not somebody that's content to nibble around the edges. I'm not trying to just manage America in decline a little bit better than Biden and the Democrats. I want to reverse the decline. I don't think we'd have an opportunity to do that in 2028. So I have a responsibility to step up. If I'm the guy that can get it done, beat the Democrats, get all this done up in Washington, that's going to put this country on an entirely different trajectory.
I told you yesterday about the Louisiana legislature's overriding of Democrat Governor John Bel Edwards' veto of a bill that bans meatball surgery and chemical castration for minors in the name of gender. One of the people who voted to override that veto is State Senator Mike Fessy. For his efforts, Fessy received the following voicemail from Professor Marcus Venable of Louisiana State University. Police tracked the number after Senator Fessy turned it over to them and linked it to this extremely austere gentleman. Have a listen.
I just wanted to say congratulations to our state senator, Big Mike Fessy, and that moron voted to make things worse for people who are already suffering. You fat piece of shit. You did not produce any evidence to support the claims you made about people being harmed by transgender care. Yet we have tons of empirical evidence showing that it's an increased suicide risk when people don't get this care. So you big fat-headed motherfucker, I can't wait to read your name in the obituary. I will make a martini made from the tears of butthurt conservatives when we put your ass in the ground, you fucking useless piece of shit. Fuck you. I hope you have a terrible day. Fuck yourself.
And finally, today's feel-good story of the day comes to us from WNCN TV in Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina.
The Pfizer manufacturing plant was damaged by the tornado in Nash County. Just look at that. You can see part of the roof there caved in, all of that debris surrounding the building. Officials with Pfizer tell us there are no reports of serious injuries. And, man, they certainly are lucky when you look at the damage that was caused by that tornado.
Drat. And that's what happened while we were away.
Oh, shucks, man.
Somebody tweeted a mostly safe and effective tornado. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
That is brilliant. Wish that I thought of that one. Aaron's montage brought to you by Eden Pure and their maybe a poorly timed reference to a thunderstorm air purifier after that video. On the other hand, maybe perfectly timed. All right. If you want to find out why the odors in your home are no match for what Eden Pure brings to the table, you can be the latest among many positive reviews we have received from our audience. They have sold hundreds of thousands of these units, thousands of 5-star reviews you can read online for yourself. And right now, you can get all 3 units in their 3-pack for under $200. That's $200 in savings. You'll get all 3 for under $200 and free shipping if you enter the discount code STEVE when you go to EdenPureDeals.com/Steve. That's EdenPureDeals.com/Steve. Use the discount code STEVE for the savings, $200 off and free shipping at EdenPureDeals.com/Steve. Promo code Steve. Coming up in the overtime today, I just concluded a poll where I asked you, if you follow me on Twitter, is RFK Jr. a thing, really? Or is he really just a conservative media thing? seems kind of fitting given the video that Aaron showed in the montage there where he shows up to testify at a hearing about censorship and Democrats immediately move to censor him. That's about as on brand as it gets. But is he relevant or is he a projection of conservative media? We will have those results for you, and then we will discuss them amongst ourselves if you're a Blaze TV subscriber. And by the way, you guys know I typically have, not all the time, but numerous reasons why I do things. There's another reason I'm asking this question, and I will get to that in the overtime today. It's not that I'm just genuinely curious, but it's another. There's a hypothesis I have, and we will ruminate on that today at blazetv.com/Deace. If you're a Blaze TV subscriber, go there, and you'll be able to watch it later today. We'll record it right after today's show. If you're not yet a Blaze TV subscriber, you can also go to blazetv.com/Deace and become one for just $10 a month at blazetv.com/Deace. All right. I haven't done this before, and I'm going to do this. I was listening to a Bible teaching podcast the other day, and the guy was talking about one of the teachers he had when he went to Catholic school as a kid, and it was the theology teacher. And he would do. There were no scheduled tests. Every test was a pop quiz, and the point of it was for you to be prepared for tests as a believer. All right, tests can come for you as a believer at any particular point in time, and it made me think. I taught a biblical worldview curriculum for the homeschool co-op here in Des Moines several years ago. Wish I'd have thought of that. Actually, I kind of like that idea. So you never know. You never know when you will face a test as a believer. So be ready, be on guard, and so tests could come at any particular point in time. All right, and I liked that quite a bit. I thought that was very clever, and so I have determined that I'm going to deploy this at times during this show. Oh. Moving forward into the future.
It just...
The enthusiasm is palpable.
His soul broke. I heard it.
Todd's like, can that tornado come over here, please? All right.
What you doing?
Okay. So, here's a test. Pop quiz. All right. In Aaron's montage today, what's real? Aaron.
I was raising my hand.
We'll make a real impact. we'll lead to something real.
I'm putting my hand back
Have a
down.
real impact on people that are listening and watching.
I was
going to
say Mitt Romney really likes him some hot dogs. That's real.
Yeah, I agree. He's getting dragged, and I will not stand for it. Honestly,
I'm not going to stand for defending Mitt Romney on my show, but
tell me when he's gotten closer to the truth in the last 2 or 3 years than that. That's...
You mean the last 20 or 30 years?
Fine.
Yeah.
Keep going. Why are you dragging for that? He actually took the time to say something true for once. That's it.
Okay. I'll allow it.
Hot dogs are wonderful.
Mitt Romney's culinary tastes. I agree that hot dogs are wonderful.
Yeah, not Bar C. That's the only brand. That will make you vomit, but every other brand.
Don't sully Aaron, good grief. Go dig your koi pond. We're not going to go to the lowest.
No, I'm talking about like the lowest of low-end hot dogs. Everything. Oscar Mayer, wonderful.
We're taking a couple days off in August because we're doing this Hall of Fame tour, Amy and I are, and we're going to go visit the NFL Hall of Fame. And while it's only like an hour from Cleveland, so we're going to stay there. And we're going to visit the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame too. And as much as I'm looking forward to that, we've got tickets right behind the dugout, the Tiger dugout. Tigers are playing the Guardians while we're there. Where to go? Just worked itself out. We didn't know that ahead of time.
Excellent.
Just once we booked our trip, we're like, we should go check the schedule and see if the Guardians are in town. Or the artists formerly known as the Indians, and they are, and they just so happen to be playing my Tigers. Okay, so we got tickets right behind the Tiger dugout. I cannot wait to sit out there that Friday night and just eat a ballpark dog. Even though both of these teams suck. All right? It won't matter. It's the ambiance. Yes. It's the atmosphere. Yes. It's the tradition. Yeah, I hear you.
Thank you, Mitt Romney. Look what he did.
All right. Now, just imagine if Mitt Romney had the enthusiasm for a Chick-fil-A sandwich 10 years ago
exactly.
that he has now for hot dogs. He might have been president of the United States.
Brilliant segue.
Yes. All right. Okay. I can't let Mitt Romney get away with only glowing comments under any conditions on this program, or frankly, I have sold my soul to myself, and I can't handle that. All right. What else? What else is impactful that was in there?
Well, the latest version of Love is Love coming from the professor or staff member or whatever at LSU University.
Who
that's
issues a de facto threat there. I look forward to your death.
That's true.
Yeah.
Because that's who they are.
I think that is perhaps the most true thing that was in the entire montage. By the way, I'm not hammering my own employee here. It was a fantastic montage. But, why do I have no interest in talking about the Hunter hearing yesterday? I don't think anything will happen. Why do I have no interest in talking about Jim Clymer's he's got more, or whatever, what's his nuts, the congressman from Louisiana has got more allegations confirmed, or the senator, about Hunter Biden. They're not going to, no one's going to do anything about that. So it just feels like I'm just wasting my and my audience's time.
Ron DeSantis ripping your line off. He wants to go to Washington to do something, not to be somebody.
I did notice that, yeah.
And
I'm probably not the only person that's ever said that, but I've probably said it more than anybody else has.
And we're going to talk about it in the overtime.
Mm-hmm.
But Debbie Wasserman Schultz going full George Orwell publicly, that fear that cannot abide letting Kennedy even speak, that's true.
Let's go back to the LSU professor.
Yes.
Because I think that's the most real and impactful thing that was in the entire montage. Because politics in and of itself should not produce that level of anger in a free society unless what we're talking about here is something that is morally indefensible or not reconcilable with the other viewpoint. You see what I'm saying? The way this should work, if we were a healthier society, is the political class would be more incendiary in their language than the average person, because they would feel as if they need to do that to get your attention and to get you mobilized and focused on the outcome that they want, right? No one ever you ever watched a commercial and someone said, here's our product, we think it's great, we're not sure you need it, we're not sure when you would, but just in case you do sometime in the future, bookmark it and just consider us in the future. Think about it. Ever seen that ad?
No.
No one's ever going to run that ad. All right, you have to have it. You need it now, okay? Life won't be the same if you don't, all right? They have to develop a sense of urgency. If we were a healthier, more e pluribus unum society, the language from the political class would be more incendiary than what you would get from normal people, because by and large, we wouldn't have a need unless there was a Pearl Harbor or a COVID-19. We wouldn't have a need every single day to be fixated on what they are doing. We'd be about our own details in our own lives. And so they'd have to recalibrate us, refocus us, get our attention. And say, no, pay attention to me. That's why you heard every year. We look back on the 80s. We look back on the gas lines of the 70s and Watergate and think, those were the days. All right? But go back and every election was the most important election of your lifetime in that era too. Okay? And we look at those as halcyon days of Americana compared to the era in which we live right now, right? But they were always, every election's always the most important one. Oh, it's every time. It's to get your attention, get you to show up, get you to vote, get you mobilized, because you got a million other things distracting you. We now live in an era where a lot of times normal people's political rhetoric is more incendiary than the people that do this professionally. That's not healthy, because it means you're in a predicament. It means that you have come to a place in your society where you are at irreconcilable moral views. People don't take appropriations debates as seriously as that guy takes the tranny stuff in that phone call, right?
Yeah.
All right. That means we have reached some form of an existential nexus that it's clear the viewpoints expressed here cannot share space. They violate the laws of physics. All right? An object can only share one space at a particular point in time. sooner or later, if another one comes along of equal or greater value, it nudges out the other one. Or if it's not of equal or greater value, it gets nudged out by the one that was already sitting there. Now, sometimes that comes from righteousness, like, for example, civil rights, abolition of slavery, produced this kind of incendiary language. Think of John Brown. Remember, I wrote a column about John Brown a few years ago, that the kind of stuff we are doing to ourselves right now as a society, lawlessness abounds, just sets the stage for Harper's Ferry moments. They can come from the right or the left. Our friend Jesse Kelly's been warning about this. Hey, y'all concerned about Trump's rhetoric, keep going. And the right will eventually turn to their own Franco, and you'll get somebody that will actually do the stuff Trump just tweeted about, right? All right. That's the ebb and flow of history. When two sides in a culture reach a point of irreconcilable differences on an existential issue, slavery, civil rights. All right, those would be existential issues. Abortion would be an existential issue. Okay. What's a woman would be an existential issue. And I think that voicemail clearly illustrates that point yet again. It's reminiscent of what we saw last week in Iowa with the protesters at the state capitol. Same exact thing. You are violating their morality. And we are. And we are trying to. That's the point.
Amen.
Okay? The question is your morality actually moral? Or is it demonic? Right? I mean, there's not a whole lot of humble black churchgoers in the streets of Selma, Alabama, humming "We Shall Overcome" in that voicemail from that guy, right? Like, there's nothing godly happening there, right? I mean, he's speaking parcel tongue there. He's opening his mouth, and the doctrines of demons and the way that they communicate. Remember the guy John Ramirez, the former Satanist we had on the show back in the spring, right around the time that Nefarious came out, and his experience was anytime anybody's involved in demonic activity, occult activity, because he was, okay, just the most vile language you can imagine. They can't help it. That's just, the F-bombs of conjunction, junction, what's your function? They can't get around it. It's just part and parcel of the habitat of, and this is the fulfillment of what Jesus says. It's not what goes into your mouth that makes you unclean, but what comes out, right? Okay. So that's an example of that, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? Here's the thing, though. And this is where we are not, and we're going to get into this more next hour on Theology Thursday. This is where we are not prepped very well by the state of the church in America.
This is a very important point.
We should be trying to generate that response.
Yes.
First thing I saw on Twitter today was a nice Florida woman with trying to grow her Twitter account. I looked at her feed, and she had tagged me and a bunch of other known, conservative Twitter people, and she's really despondent at the hate she's getting for calling out these groomers. I wrote her back. I said, "Madam, congratulations, you are over the target. Yes. Welcome to the fight."
Yes.
Unfortunately, our churches have told us that it's mean to evoke this kinds of reactions from demons. Except, every time Jesus encountered demons in the Gospels, how did they react?
The same way.
The same exact way. Now, we should be trying to provoke that, meaning that our presence, what we represent, and more importantly, the way we represent it, that we are aggressive but not belligerent, that we are persistent but not douchey, that we are unyielding, but not spiteful. It's also the way that we will not be moved. I'll never hate you as much as you hate me, but you will not move me at the exact same time. Because if I hate them as much as they hate me, then they don't have to act like that. I'm helping to make their case for them. I'm not loving my neighbor as I love myself. I'm betraying a code of my own code, or a creed of my own code. But if I stand in the gap and say, "Here I stand, I can do no more," bring your worst. I am not afraid, and I will not back down. And we will not let you have our kids. We will not. They can't help but react that way in kind. We should be trying to provoke that reaction. The culture is in the jury. They're in the jury box. Let them see that reaction. Yes. If you're a prosecutor, do you think a defense attorney who's defending a murderer, doesn't he coach him? Hey, this is what they're looking for. If you're a prosecutor, don't you want him to come off as a creep as he's sitting there next to his attorney? Don't you want him to give the jury the willies? Don't you want the jury to look at him and say, "I don't like the way he's looking at me. Something's not right about that guy." See what I'm saying? I don't like the vibe. We want to expose that.
Yes.
We want the culture that's sitting in the jury box, undecided about which way to go in the future. We've come to the fork in the road, Yogi Berra. It is time now to take it. And the culture is uncertain. And that's what's changed. It used to be believers. We had dominance in the culture, so we sat in the jury box. And both sides brought their arguments to us, and we determined whether it was acceptable for cultural consumption or not. Those days are gone now. We're in a post-Christian era. So we're now one of the attorneys making our case. And the culture now is in the jury box. And we want them to see these creeps. This goes to what Marjorie Taylor Greene did yesterday with the Hunter Biden stuff.
I've been waiting to say it.
Okay. And I saw you tweet this yesterday. The same people that are demanding she blur out these images are the same people that want to show your kid gay porn in the schools. All right? Expose this. Kim Reynolds, what she did on our local news.
Yes.
Reading it on live television so they could not avoid it. We want to provoke this. We want people to see the seething. We want them to see it. And the problem is because too many of our churches are non-confrontational and have coached you and I accordingly, we don't provoke that response. So it always looks like we're the belligerent party now. While claiming to be loving, we come across as Pharisees. We come across as judgmental. Because we never force them to press the point that they really believe. What is it they really want? That's what they really want right there. That's really their soul. That man, that gentleman, it's sad, but it's also true. When that professor at LSU opened his mouth, actual demons in hell spoke through him. That's what you heard on that voicemail. He's a stenographer for them. He's captured. It's sad. He needs deliverance. He needs salvation. But it's also true. And that needs to be exposed to this culture as often as possible. And if we tried to do anything else with our movie Nefarious, it was that, to expose that. What are your thoughts?
Well, turns out there was a lot of truth in there. We just had to get in there and mine it out. And there's more truth to the Taylor Greene than even you let on because of what you said earlier about nothing will come out of those hearings. Nothing in that the task for which it's purportedly there for, you are absolutely right. But just like I ultimately did not get on the school board in Carlisle, and I had to take my kids away, and I got cease and desist letters, I continued to still use my opportunities where I am inevitable. And she decided, Marjorie Taylor Greene knows this is not going to do. Just like you said, we're not going to get to the thing we need to get to, but I am going to capitalize nonetheless. Oh, you bet everybody is going to see these Hunter Biden nudes. You bet they are. There are wins all over this place, all over this land, right around the corner. You just have to have the courage to take them. That's it.
Yep. We have confused loving for niceness again. How many times can we say this? We've confused so many things in our language. Talked about one just yesterday. Just outsourcing is not the same as doing. That is not the same thing. Loving is not the same as nice. You have to be confrontational. And it is a narrow road to walk because we're human beings. We will make mistakes. The temptation is always going to be there to say, I want to defeat this human instead of defeating the forces behind it. And it's hard to do, to see people's humanity when they don't see it in themselves and make it hard for you to see them. But once again, we're not up against flesh and blood. We're up against principalities and powers. When you recognize that, when you really internalize that, not to use wonky language here, but when you actually believe that, it crystallizes what must be done. And that is a daily confrontation of those forces. So hats off to, I think it's Big Mike Facey, state senator in Louisiana, for invoking, whatever he did, for invoking and provoking that type of response.
Here's the thing, too, to remember. If you're doing the right thing the wrong way, you probably won't provoke that kind of response. They'll let you just continue doing it because you're making a fool out of yourself and your Lord, okay? You get that kind of reaction when you're doing the right thing, but also the right way, typically. So count it all joy, my brothers. More in a moment. All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show. And one of the things and that we are the most proud to partner with here at the Blaze is our friends over at Preborn, and they share the same goal that we do, to not have to do this anymore. And beginning last summer with the overturning of Roe, we took a big step towards that ultimate goal, but we're not finished yet. And they need help from people like us to help mothers and babies in crisis. They understand you got to care for them both, love them both. They practice confrontation, but grace and truth. They confront moms in crisis like my mom was 50 years ago. She was pregnant at 14, not sure what to do in the early days of Roe v. Wade. Well, now they find those moms. They show them the ultrasound, let them hear the heartbeat of their baby. And about 80% of the time over the course of the history of their ministry, what they have found is the mother, her conscience is convicted that that is not her body now. It is somebody else. And she doesn't go through with it. And that's tremendous. However, the battle doesn't end there. She still needs help, counseling, postnatal care. They provide all of that, the ultrasounds and then the aftercare. So they do the truth and grace, but all of it free of charge for the mom and the child. That means they need donations from people like us. If you want to make a tax-deductible donation today to our friends over at Preborn, it's just $28 to pay for an ultrasound, and there's 80% odds that that's going to save a life. Would you save a life for $28? I know a lot of you would, and a lot of you have. So let's keep going. Go to preborn.com/Steve to make that donation today. Preborn.com/Steve, or on your mobile phone. Just dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby, pound 250, keyword baby, or preborn.com/Steve. It is one of the best-selling books in the country right now, America's Cultural Revolution, How the Radical Left Conquered Everything. That kind of says it all. Christopher Rufo, a name that I know a lot of you have gotten to know the last few years, joins us now here on the show. Chris, it is a pleasure to have you with us here on Blaze TV, man. How are you?
I'm doing very well. It's great to be with you.
So, Chris, let's just start with the question posed by your subtitle. How did they conquer everything?
Well, the main narrative of the book traces the radical left's long march through the institutions, beginning in the turmoil of 1968 and culminating during the turmoil of George Floyd in 2020. And I show exactly how the ideologies work and exactly how they achieve power by attaching themselves within the institutions and by conquering intellectual and administrative territory. And that really is the key story of the second half of the 20th century. And as people looked around themselves during that summer of 2020 and said, what happened to our institutions? How were they suddenly gripped by DEI, CRT, radical gender ideology? The book explains exactly the origins, not just of the ideologies and the theories, but their practical political strategies for attaining power.
Here's the challenge I think we have on the right, Chris, is can we emulate what they have done without undermining our own values and belief system in the process, right? So we went through this exercise the last couple of years because of a politician you know well, Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, that we have seen him use power in order to push back the power they have obtained and achieved in the state of Florida. And that has presented itself a debate on the right. And most of it's a fake debate, frankly. But the idea, well, that's not limited government. Most of it is from people who just don't agree and want to, frankly, hide that fact. All right. And so limited government means the other side gets to violate every morsel of the social compact, every syllable of the Constitution. And somehow I have to adhere myself to the strictest possible interpretation of it in order to defeat them. That's not reality. OK, but I do think, though, that there are some of their things that they have been willing to do because they don't respect things like the laws of nature and nature's God. And so there's this notion that maybe they have a tactical advantage because they have no ethical boundary other than will to power. So how do we fight that? Because we don't want to undermine our own ethics at the same time we claim to be trying to reinforce or defend them.
Sure. I think the first part of your question is really crucial, and this is an important debate on the right, but our friends who are on the libertarian right or the kind of cranky, old mainstream of the right that oppose what Governor DeSantis has done and now many other governors are doing, have it totally backwards. I mean, I support limited government, but the fact of the matter is that we don't have limited government. We haven't had it for about a century, and we have a large state sector. K through 12 schools are 90% controlled by government. Universities are 75% controlled by government as measured by headcount. And so the question is not how can we operate as if there were a limited government or a libertarian state. The question is, what do we do now when the government has an effective monopoly on education from kindergarten through graduate school? And the answer is, of course, I would love to see the role of government reduced. But we have to also deal with the reality that the government will be in control of education system, for example, for the foreseeable future. Mm-hmm. And legislators have a duty to make sure that public institutions reflect the values of the public and serve the public interest. And so our friends in the libertarian right are just delusional. They think that the people, this is what their argument boils down to, that the people, through their legislators and their governor, have no right to regulate the state. This is anti-democratic to the core, and it's against what the founders would have believed. The founders understood that we will have a state, that it's limited, but even in its limitations must be governed according to a set of principles, according to a set of values, and according to the work of great statesmen. Many conservative governors don't want to be statesmen. They want to be the Queen of England. They want to be symbolic representatives, soak up the limelight, and not actually govern. Governor DeSantis said, no, we're doing it differently. If we're going to have public schools and public universities, they have to reflect the values of the voters who pay for them, and that's exactly what he's done. And I think there's no real substantive argument against it.
I want you to critique people that do my job, because often we are the conduit between the base patriotic, America first, conservative, libertarian, non-communist, whatever name you want to put on that base of people. We are the conduit between them and their elected officials. And so what do you, as you're on social media and stuff and you see guys like me that do this for a living with these big national conservative, right of center or conservative platforms, what is the thing that makes you shake your head the most at and say that dog ain't gonna hunt? What could we be doing better?
I think what's really important for those of us in media and people who are in the kind of general commentary business, I see too many people on the right constantly criticizing conservative politicians, constantly offering, a negative feedback and having even sometimes a cynical posture. But what I've learned...
So you're talking about me. Go ahead, continue on, Chris.
Not specifically, but what I've learned in my work as a journalist and an activist and now working with many political figures is what you have to do if you really want to be influential is set the conditions and the incentives for victory that benefits those politicians. And if you can set those conditions, you can provide the narrative support, you can provide the encouragement, you can provide a system of incentives that makes it look like they can win as they also deliver victories for us. You're going to see politicians respond to that and act in the ways that you want and pass the kind of legislation that you want and ultimately achieve the objectives that you want. And what I've also learned about politicians, it's easy to criticize them as cynical operators or as self-interested, but I actually have I've gained a tremendous amount of respect for these guys. I mean, these guys are under the gun constantly. They have to run for re-election. They have to raise money. They have to placate all the various interest groups. They have to constantly travel and be away from their families. It's a much more difficult job than what you and I do every day. And so I think we need to keep that in mind. And in some ways, we have to actually provide backup and support and engagement and encouragement for our political leaders and try to inspire them to be great statesmen. Because at their best, politicians are great statesmen, they're great moral and political leaders. And so if we have that expectation for them, if we call on them to serve in that capacity, we're going to be much more successful and we're going to see the kind of changes that we want to see.
So I asked for it by saying, hey, what could guys like me do better? Can I give a polite rebuttal?
Please.
Is it possible that you see that potential because essentially you are a self-editing mechanism yourself, meaning that if I'm one of the Republicans that's here to betray my base, I'm probably not calling Chris Rufo in to say, hey, how can we do what you're writing about? You know what I'm saying? And so the ones that are going to be interested in talking to you would be the ones who maybe have the kind of untapped potential that you do, or that you just described, I mean, as opposed to the ones that kind of don't. Like I've learned in my career early on, anytime I've ever had to track a Republican down, they were terrible every single time. Because I have something they all want, free airtime, right? And so the ones who come to me are always the ones that are good. The ones that I got to go get, I can't think of a time I've ever had to go get somebody and they turned out to be good. You see what I'm trying to say? That maybe because of what you've done and your reputation, the posers know, don't call Chris Rufo in because that won't work. We'll just bypass him.
Yes, but let me offer a counterpoint to your counterpoint. Don't worry about those people because those folks, in my experience, are most often people who, take a test of the wind and go whichever the way the wind blows. So you don't want to be the person that's directly influencing that person. You want to be the person who's influencing the direction of the wind. And so I found that in my fight against CRT, some very strong, very courageous leaders stood up and supported my fight against CRT. It began with President Trump. It went to Governor DeSantis and some other governors around the country that stood strong. While at the same time, the kind of mainstream, old school right was actually telling me, don't dig into this issue. It's too dangerous. It's too scary. They didn't want to engage. They ran away. But when President Trump took it up, when Governor DeSantis took it up, when other great leaders took it up, and they demonstrated that it was popular, that it was successful, that it was delivering political victories, all of a sudden, all of those fair weather folks started copying them.
You changed the wind.
So I think that you change the wind. And so to the extent that we can change the wind, all of these folks that are kind of soft and squishy will follow suit. And so I always think that demonstrating leadership, demonstrating victory, demonstrating success will influence even the most cynical politicians to follow what you want them to do.
That's well said. One of the core creeds of our show is that we're not a nation of laws and never have been. We are a nation of political will and always will be. That ultimately conviction is what wins the kind of cultural skirmishes you write about in your book. Conviction wins. And if you look through the course of human history, whichever side believed the most in the rightness of its cause and was willing to suffer and persevere for it the most always ends up winning. Every single time. Look at the armpit known as Afghanistan. In the last 60 years, they have repelled two great empires, the Soviet Union and the United States, just because in the end, they wanted control of the sandhills there more than the Soviets and the Americans did. We drove the redcoats off our shores. They never really surrendered as much as they just got tired of fighting and went home. They got sick of it and left, and then regrouped and came back in 1812. Okay? But conviction wins. And I think that is the one place where we have been whooped more than any place else. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's really the heart of this book. And I'll tell you, I profiled the leading lights on the radical left, people who have unleashed devastation and destruction on our institutions. But in doing the year of research, for writing this book, I developed a kind of grudging respect for them. However wrong their ideas, however disastrous the consequences they brought, they had conviction, they had follow through, they were willing to take risks, they were willing to sacrifice, they believed in their cause and they fought for their cause. And there's something that is deeply attractive about that, which is partially why they were able to attract so many people to their movement. And we can actually take a lesson from that. Not that their ideas are right, but that we need to have an equal or greater faith in our ideas, an equal or greater courage to express our ideas, and then that very firm conviction in order to act. And I think ultimately we aspire to be a nation of laws. We should not fetishize the will. But in order to have a system of laws, a nation of laws, we need to have people that believe in those laws to such an extent that they're willing to make the hard choices, to take responsibility, and to govern according to those principles. And so I think that we have the principles of 1776 on our side, but those principles are not inevitable. Yep. They don't govern the way the world works inevitably. Yep. And so we have to have a country where people know those principles and are willing to fight for those principles. That's what you're doing, that's what I'm doing, and I think that if we can take that and expand on it, we can be successful.
Very well said from a guy that has taken a lot of ground the last few years. Great to see the success of the book getting into the top 20 overall on Amazon.com. Ain't easy, because every book that's currently published in the world is at Amazon. So pick up a copy. America's Cultural Revolution, How the Radical Left Conquered Everything. From Christopher Rufo. Good to see you and have you on the show, Chris. Really appreciate the work you've done the last few years, brother. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You bet. All right, gentlemen, thoughts on that conversation?
Well, you can understand just from that interview why he's been so successful. He's taken the time to mine the depth of crucial distinctions if this is going to be a republic that we can keep. Ben Franklin, when he tells you about be statesman, this is not just rhetorical flourish. This is crucial. Do not just be a politician. You must be a statesman. It's the same thing I say to you. Don't just be a consumer or even a voter. You need to be a citizen. That's the whole ball game in many respects. And when he also he tells about governors want to be monarchs, again, a very crucial distinction. Mm-hmm. You're not there just to put on a smiley face and do some soft shoe. You are there to lead, be a statesman. I don't want that to get lost on you. He's not just using a colorful word there. It really is the whole ball game when it comes to leadership as it applies to a republic.
The second question you asked, I think, was the most crucial of the interview. How do we emulate what the left has done in this country over the last generation and a half without becoming like the left? And as I've watched Chris Rufo's work over the last few years especially, he has become the embodiment, in my mind, of how you do that. Conviction and focus. There's a lot of untapped conviction, I believe, on our side. It's just completely unfocused. Hey, did you look at the latest hearing on Capitol Hill? Oh boy, they pulled the pants down. It's kind of what we were talking about in segment 1 of the show. And I think ultimately, he pushed back one time I saw on Twitter, and it kind of irked me at first. He pushed back very strongly on on a conservative saying, hey, we need to stop sending our kids to universities. And essentially his point was, once I kind of looked into it a little bit more and thought about it a little bit more, is yes, pull your kids out of university. Don't send them to university. Don't send them to the public schools, homeschool them. But eventually, ultimately, that mindset is a loser.
Agreed.
That's a loser. If you abandon or politely decline the institutions, they will rudely, eventually decline you. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're up against. So do we have the conviction and focus to turn this around while we still have time? That's the ultimate question here.
If we don't, one institution is one of the main reasons why, and we are going to talk about that next when we get to Theology Thursday, right after this here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. All right, back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Steve Deace here with Todders and Aaron McIntyre, all of you, and you can all, hopefully though not all at once, let me know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox. Email the show, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. Follow me at Steve Deace Show on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. And you can also find me on Truth Social at Real Steve Deace over there, at Real Steve Deace. We would love to look on our podcast page and find your 5-star review. If you have yet to leave one of those, please consider doing so, if you like the show, of course. And then hit subscribe or follow if you're on iTunes. And thank you to all of you that have done those things for us already. We appreciate each and every one. Also appreciate the return of Sweatblock as a partner to our program. I'm going to put Sweatblock to the test this weekend. I'm heading to SoCal tonight, and apparently I'm not the only thing heading there. The extremely hot temperatures are heading there with me. So it is going to be very, very warm when we're at Universal Studios LA on Friday. Now, the last time I went to Universal Studios was in Orlando 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, and I took Sweatblock with me then. Now, 90 degrees in January is a lot harder to get used to than 90 degrees in July, because it's summertime. You know, the blood's thinner, you're used to it. But, man, you guys remember, I was pretty concerned about going from desolation to tropical. Sweatblock more than held its own while we were down there in Florida. So I am confident it will do the same for us as we experience a little heat wave in Southern California this weekend. That's why I would recommend it to you. And also try their antiperspirant wipes designed for your armpits. If you have an issue with excessive sweating, those are perfect for those. It's their best-selling item. My own son has tried them and has raved about them. But they've got all kinds of things. Stick deodorant. They've even got deodorant lotion to help with some of those more sensitive areas, maybe getting a little swampy this time of year. Just go to sweatblock.com, use the promo code DACE. You'll get 20% off. 20% off with the promo code DACE at sweatblock.com. Again, sweatblock.com, promo code DACE for 20% off. So let's go to Theology Thursday. Todd and Aaron, we have been studying this book, Kingdom Politics, Returning God to Government by Dr. Tony Evans. And we are in part 2 of the book where we're kind of now getting into the essentials that are the priorities for Christians getting involved in political and cultural engagement, right? The first part of the book kind of set the stage for why Christians should be politically and culturally engaged. And then the second part of the book that we're in now talks about what those priorities ought to be, those fundamentals ought to be if you are engaged. And this chapter is titled The Importance of Church. I want to, before we even get into the chapter, and I find out what you guys want to discuss out of this chapter, I want to just discuss the title of the book, or this chapter, The Importance of Church. This morning, I saw this tweet that I responded to here in my feed. Let me find it really quick. And it was from Dr. Frank Turek, who we just had on our show. Mm-hmm. Okay, who is a biblical apologetic speaker, author, hosts his own podcast. Okay, and we just had him on our show, and he asked the question: what can churches do to appeal to men and avoid hyperfeminization? I tweeted this back to him because I think it absolutely coincides with what we're going to discuss here in this segment. I tweeted back to him, it is a feedback loop. Most pastors don't want to be confrontational to either the congregation or the culture, so they feminize or soften their approach, which drives the men away because it's empty platitudes without application that are not worth their time. Or it softens the men so that they are conditioned that there is no application to their faith. It just remains a place of philosophical nurturing and encouragement. But nothing has to actually be done. No marching orders are given. Which, now that either the men have been driven away or they've been softened to inaction, gives the go-ahead for the pastor to continue being the girly man from the pulpit that he is. And it's the feedback loop. He gives biblical estrogen to the audience. Now, by the way, is estrogen a good thing?
Yeah.
You know, I'm a guy, I'm kind of fond of estrogen myself, if you get where I'm picking up money. I kind of like it myself, okay? So who created estrogen, by the way? God. So is estrogen bad? No. And again, as a man, I'm a little fond of it myself, okay? But something you want to ingest a lot of if you're a man? No. Why? Because you're a man. And testosterone is more our thing, right?
Water's good, but do you fill your car's gas tank with water?
Exactly. Yeah. We are wired differently because we are created for different primary purposes. All right? But this creates the environment that the girly man pastor is hoping for. He has successfully spayed and neutered the men, or driven away the ones that would not be spayed and neutered. So no demands are being made of him. No one is saying to him after the sermon, brother, you got to up your game. That ain't going to cut it. I mean, I was at my school board meeting last week. They're trying to castrate my kid and feed him gay porn, and you're out here talking about, 5 steps to looking nicer, okay, in front of demons. That ain't going to cut it, brother. That doesn't happen. Like, a lot of churches don't even have, like, men's groups nowadays. Why? But they'll have it's always a danger if a church has a women's group and not a men's group. Why? Because, again, women are built differently. Women have an innate desire for encouragement from other women. And it helps them to keep going to perform their roles as women. That's to be heard, to be affirmed, to be nurtured. There's nothing wrong with those things. They're made that way. Men have an innate desire and need to be held accountable by other men. Why? Because when we are held accountable, then that is what gives us the energy to keep going. See what I'm saying here? Mm-hmm. All right? And so what will happen is, if you have a men's ministry at your church, the first weekend or two, you have your pancake breakfast or pizza night. First week or two, the guys will come in, get really emotional, confess how much porn they watched last week or how many times they watched the chick in the yoga pants at the gym and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying that's not important, okay? But they'll do that like once or twice. But then by the time we get to like the third meeting, if there aren't any marching orders, what are most men going to do? Tap out. I'm busy. I got stuff to do. I own a company. I got a job. I got a family. My kids got sporting events. You know, my wife needs me home so she can go out with her friends. A million other things. I don't need to just over and over and over again be told it's going to be okay. All right, I needed that once. Now I need a cause. Now I need direction. All right, man. I've exiled my baggage. I've jettisoned my baggage. A real man is then going to think, I now feel free to go do something with this. Because that baggage was baggage. It was holding you down, right? You've jettisoned it, and so now you're like, I'm freed up now. So what are we going to do here? What's up? We're doing what? You know, what are we doing? Well, we're just going to keep meeting. And we're going to do what? We're going to keep meeting. To do what? Keep meeting. Well, I've already got a meeting at church once a week. It's called church. Okay. So if we're going to do this another night a week, and I've got responsibilities, what are we doing here? And a lot of American church culture does not want the men mobilized. Because if the men are mobilized, they will go to the pastors and elders and say, what you like to say all the time, Todd, what are you prepared to do? Mm-hmm. What's going on here? This ain't good enough. This ain't cutting it. You know what I'm saying? This has no chance against what we're up against, man. What are we doing here? They don't want that. I want my pleated khakis and my sweater vests. So we're going to feminize things, dull the senses of the men, so that the thought when they leave church, there is no immediate marching order. There's just a, I got encouraged. Nice? Yeah, I got encouraged. It's a Xanax, biblical Xanax. I got theologically encouraged. I got patted on the back. Everything's going to be okay. Dude, of course it's okay. You have 3 cars. You live in a $300,000 house. You don't go to church at a church, but a friggin' campus. What are you talking about? Your hard life now, Annie. Okay? Kick that to the curb, dude. It was always okay. It was okay before you walked in. It'll be okay after you walked out. You're living a life 99.99% of Homo sapiens on this planet can't even envision. It ain't hard. Get out of here. But that's how we're conditioned. Oh, man, boss was mean. Be thankful you got a boss. Oh, man, economy's tough. I know. You might have to go down to a 2-stall garage in your next home purchase. Most of the world would be happy to live in your garage. But see, we're not conditioned to think like this. And so I don't often affirmatively quote George W. Bush, but when I do, it is this quote. It is the soft bigotry of low expectations. That this is so hard. And therefore, to ask us to do any more would just be too difficult. So don't. And that is the conditioning that occurs in most of American church culture. And it's not an accident. It is on purpose. Because if I get the men wired and the men are fired up, the men aren't going to say, I just need to talk to my buddy again and get that encouraging word. No! Because your buddy's going to say, dude, we just did this last night. So why didn't you do what I told you to do last night? I don't know. Well, then stop freaking calling me. You're wasting my time. That's what we're going to say to each other, right? Because women need nurturing from other women and encouragement. Men need accountability from other men. Totally different creatures, because I know we don't say this too much anymore, but men and women are different. But if we treat the men that way, the men will make demands of the ministry. The men will make demands of the churches. They will say, well, why aren't you raising your game? What are we doing here? And American church culture does not want that. Thoughts?
To that end, the money line of the entire book so far, and I'd imagine going forward, was in this chapter. It's near the end. It's pretty much to sum it up, but it is so vitally important. God will not skip the church house. Will not. Will not. Will not. Any gray area there? No. Will not. And this is particularly haunting considering this election and how we, even on this show, talk about it perhaps being the greatest election of our lifetime. But here's the darn truth of it all. God will not skip the church house to fix the White House. That, I just stepped back and was like,
there it is.
Testify.
Right there.
That's it.
We're done here now.
Yes.
That's the word. That's the word we needed to hear. Now we have our marching orders right there. Yes.
And let's face it, even on this show, which is explicitly the most Christian political talk show in the nation, which one rivals it? There might be somebody that's tied with it who goes above and beyond. It is something that we must make sure we contemplate on a daily basis, because let's all be real here. Are we close to fixing this church house? How much time collectively does the political apparatus, even in the face of tranny madness and the COVID lies, how much time have we spent fixing the church house, talking about the church house? You just talked about men. Who's leading the charge to the degree that we are focusing on some of these issues? It's something called Moms for Liberty. It's not Dads for Liberty. It as powerful as it was, it's a little desperate to read that statement because I know how far we are away from healthy American churches.
Aaron, you want to comment on this or move it to whatever was on your mind about this chapter?
Well, I think...
Or both.
Yeah, I think we can probably move on, and I think this actually dovetails nicely with what I was wanting to talk about from this chapter. Yeah, Dr. Evans talks about Matthew 22, 5 through 17, when the Pharisees and the Herodians, and basically he likened those to the conservatives and the politicians of the day, trying to trip Jesus up with the question about taxation. And Jesus responds by asking them, how are you going to pay this tax? Show me what you would pay this tax with. And they hold up a coin. Whose face is inscribed upon that coin? Caesar's. Render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, and unto God that which is God's. We read this passage, and this is one of the most popular, maybe, passages in at least Matthew, if not the entire Gospels. We read that. We understand the meaning of that. We do understand the meaning of that. At a surface level, I would argue. Because what is lacking, I think, in understanding in the church today are the implications. Render unto Caesar, pay tax to the government for what the government's job is. And then with my soul, that belongs to God. My body belongs to God. Are we rendering unto Caesar that which is Caesar and God that which is God's when we, are forced to use somebody's preferred pronouns? How about a couple of years ago with the COVID jabs? And I know that, man, we could go down a whole rabbit trail there, and I'm sure Todd would agree with that as well to some extent. We are increasingly, as we neglect confronting the culture around us, for the reason that you just stipulated, that the churches have become way too feminized. As we neglect confronting the culture and the government around us, increasingly, they are going to keep dialing this up just a little bit. Hey, how much are you willing to render unto us? That's going to keep getting turned up and dialed up and dialed up and dialed up some more. It goes back to what we were talking about at the end of last segment, or what I said at the end of last segment. If you don't confront the culture around you, if you don't confront the institutions around you, if you politely decline if you politely decline to engage with them, which we have the right to do now. We can homeschool. We can not go to university. There's a whole number of institutions that we really don't need. We can just say, hey, cop out. Eventually, those institutions will rudely and ruthlessly decline you.
Because there are no neutral institutions,
Correct.
as our colleague Oran McIntyre likes to say a lot.
And fundamentally, this goes back to what you were just talking about. There's a lack of confrontation amongst the men, if there are any, within churches. And when there's a lack of confrontation within the men of those churches, there will be a lack of confrontation between the churches and the culture. And that's what we're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
And so the spirit of the age, the forces of hell, can just gradually, like a frog in the boiling pot, just continue to dial that up. Hey, what are you rendering to today? Will you render a pronoun? Okay, cool. Tomorrow it's going to be something else.
Love that. Loved every word of that. I mean, your culture will either embody the spirit of Baal or the spirit of Jehovah, and there will be no middle ground. It'll be one or the other. All right? It'll be the spirit of the age, or it's Christ or chaos, as we said a few weeks ago. There is no middle ground. It's those. Something will be the driving impulse of the culture in which you live. It'll either be what influences you or what influences them. But there will be something influencing, for sure. I want to go to a statement that I find, this is a question I've been asked a lot in my career. And this may be something where, Todd, you're going to look at me and say, is this a Protestant or an evangelical thing? And maybe it is, all right? But we have these buzzwords in evangelicalism. And to quote the great prophet, the Princess Bride, that doesn't mean I think what you think it means. I think we have these buzzwords, and we're taught that if you are aligned with these buzzwords, you are a pharisaical or a terrible Christian. When in reality, they hearken back to the very founding of the country in which we live. And I've used the example of puritanical. You will actually hear Christian pastors today use puritanical as a pejorative, as a negative nomenclature. Except, hey, bro, the freedom of religion that you have right now to stand up and sound that dumb comes from the who founded the country, guys? Who was it? Puritans. Puritans founded the country. They did. Pilgrims. The Puritans founded the country. So, I mean, you want to talk about violating the rule against defecating where you live. And I love the fact that puritanical has like some connotation that you are a sexless busybody prude. When like all the Puritans had like 12 kids, right? And I mean, I'm sure those are the only 12 times that they ever had sex. And it was only, of course, in the most modest of settings, strictly for procreative purposes. And they made sure that that they were just done at that point. They even counted. It's ridiculous. But we have done this with the term Puritan and puritanical. Something that he writes in here. God is the only lawgiver. Now, Dr. Evans does not say he's the ultimate lawgiver. Doesn't say that, does he? God is the only lawgiver and the ultimate judge. That's why anytime we have a discussion on civil government, we must bring God and his perspective to the table to determine what should be legal or illegal, just or unjust, righteous or unrighteous. I want to read that again, slowly. God is the only lawgiver, and he is the ultimate judge. That's why anytime we have a discussion on civil government, we must bring God and his perspective to the table to determine what should be legal or illegal, just or unjust, righteous or unrighteous. In the Declaration of Independence, a phrase is used, the laws of nature and nature's God. What did that mean? I'm going to define it for you. God is the only lawgiver, and he is the ultimate judge. That's why anytime we have a discussion on civil government, we must bring God and his perspective to the table to determine what should be legal or illegal, just or unjust, righteous or unrighteous. That's what it means. Mm-hmm. That's what the laws of nature and nature's God means. I mean, they were being subjected to the civil government's form of law, which they believed was tyrannical. So they appealed to a higher law. What would be a higher law than the king? The law of the King of Kings would be the higher law, right? That's the whole rubric of the Declaration of Independence. Essentially, it's saying we obey God and not man. The king is a tyrant, and we obey the King of Kings instead of this king. And it even says at the end, God, if we got this wrong, judge the rectitude or motivations of our actions. Judge the rectitude. If this exegesis is wrong, if we have presented a terrible hermeneutical precedent to the rest of the world moving forward, don't let it be successful and judge us for it. Judge us harshly for it. That's what appealing to the divine lawgiver for the rectitude of our actions, that's what it means. Now, why do I bring this up now? Many times in my career, I have been asked, Steve, do you believe in theonomy? Now, if you're not a theo nerd, you don't know what that term means. But it's a very, very bad word in 21st century evangelical philosophy. What does theonomy mean? I'll tell you what it means. Ready? God is the only lawgiver, and he is the ultimate judge. That's why anytime we have a discussion on civil government, we must bring God and his perspective to the table to determine what should be legal or illegal, just or unjust, righteous or unrighteous. That's what theonomy means. What is theonomy? How is theonomy expressed? Well, it's expressed in the Mayflower Compact. For the glory of God and the establishment of the kingdom, or the furthering of the kingdom of Christ. We create this social compact amongst ourselves based on God is the only lawgiver and the ultimate judge. And so we will establish this social covenant in accordance with our best understanding of the expectations he has clearly and explicitly laid out for us in his word. Now, I am not saying that everybody needs to become R.J. Rushdoony. And again, if you're not a theo nerd, you don't know who that is. But just because you may or may not agree with the links a particular teacher will go to deploy or install the point here that is made, doesn't mean that the point is flawed. That teacher may be. That teacher may be wrong. I'm not saying he is. But the teacher may be wrong, but the point is not. It is now considered. I mean, I had friends of mine come on my show. Remember Kim Davis in Kentucky?
Yeah.
The clerk who wouldn't do the marriage licenses for the homosexuals?
Right. Oh, yeah.
I had friends of mine come on my show and say she's wrong to oppose this. Oh. She should just resign.
One of the most fascinating debates I've ever heard you have on radio, it was before my time, was with what was his name?
Todd. My good friend Todd Friel. And I love Todd Friel.
That was bizarre.
And
he
is absolutely one of the best Christian thinkers in America
which is why
today.
it was so bizarre.
And it blew my mind that he told me this, that she should have just resigned. Why? She's upholding her oath of office, and her oath of office ended with which words?
So help me God.
So help me God. Why? She's in the right. Why should she resign? They're wrong.
See, this is the trick. How can you, as Tony implores, have God and his perspective applied to the civic sphere, i.e. the White House, if you're not even doing it in the church house, if you're only talking about your perspective instead of his perspective?
Correct.
That's the ballgame.
Now the inflection point here is what is the idea of rendering. Okay? And this is where, if you want to go with people like R.J. Rushdoony and you want to debate them, he passed away several years ago. You want to debate him posthumously, that he wanted to render things under God, that which don't belong necessarily under a direct, divine lawgiver jurisdiction. We can have that conversation, but that's the right conversation to have. Because now we're debating the merits and parameters of God's sovereignty, as opposed to, and then we get into the conversation of, in his sovereignty, how much freedom does God give us?
Closed hand, open hand.
That is a healthy conversation and debate, as opposed to, let's just reject the term theonomy from the outset and say, hey, God, we're going to go ahead and come up with this on our own, pray about it, and trust that you're going to bless it because we're just such good people and our motives are so pure.
You're there because you're a sinner.
That's right. Now that elevates us.
Yeah.
That elevates us and then says God comes alongside us because we're owed something, because because we're just that special.
Nope.
And now you get into the argument, now you get into the fallacy that the Israelites fell for. They started off as a civilization that was chosen, and that's why they were special. And by the time it ended, they had convinced themselves that they were special, so they were chosen. That's the fallacy that we are falling for here. We are now the people, Jeremiah says to the Israelites, you are under judgment. You went into the valley of Ben Hinnom and you sacrificed your children to Molech. Moses told you 1,000 years ago, do not do the things the pagans do. Do not do their detestable practices. If you do, then you will lose the land. You didn't listen. Nebuchadnezzar is an instrument of God's judgment. He's basically the buckle of God's belt. He has taken it off. You will receive your spanking. Stop opposing your discipline. You're going to make it worse. And did the people listen? They said, no, we've got these red hats. Make Israel great again. We couldn't possibly be judged. All these great institutions, they all bear our markings. We're nationalists with a heritage. We're Israel. We're special. You're nothing. You were nothing before God. You'll be nothing. You're nothing without him now, and you'll be nothing without him forever. We're falling for this, like we're owed something. And we do this one of two ways. One, with our stiff-neckedness. We won't tolerate any divine discipline, or what Chris Rufo was talking about last segment. The idea that this stuff just happens automatically. Freedom just happens automatically. And we're out here trying to defend a heritage, and we've turned terms like Puritan and theonomy into F words. They're four-letter words. They're like the F-bomb. Folks, that's how this country was founded. Puritans who believed in theonomy. That's why they left the Protestant church, guys, to come here. That's our heritage. And without that recognition of the greatness of God, we don't and won't have much heritage left. I promise you that. All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show, powered by our friends over at Naturally It's Clean. And you know, man, when they come to me and say, hey, do you want to try some cleaning products? I'm in. You shut your mouth over there, Erzin. All right? You know I am in, and I'm going to try them. I'm going to put them to the test, man. This stuff is fantastic. It's absolutely the best pet stain remover I've ever seen. Like ever. All right? And met with the family that owns this company. They're great patriots as well. Bob Vila said they made the most eco-friendly carpet stain remover that's on the market today. I completely agree. Listen, I don't care how eco-friendly it is. I mean, it can be loaded with asbestos. Still, we get the dog crap out of my carpet. That's all I care about. All right. You know it's true. That's why you're laughing.
This is the product.
Just stick to the script. Just stick to the script.
This kept you from shooting your small dog into space.
It did.
This product.
That's
You guys
Cap lives because of Naturally It's Clean. The poor dog's getting older, and I mean, he was perfectly potty trained for about 8 years. And in the last years, he's getting older. He's like 80% potty trained now, and that other 20%'s driving me nuts. All right? Okay? But this stuff has worked magically. I've tried the laundry detergent, the cleaner. It's great. All right, all of it manufactured right here in the US of A. They offer free 2-day shipping as well. You can get your Steve's Essential Starter Kit right now by going to Naturally It's Clean, ITS, naturallyitsclean.com/Steve. That's 4 of their most popular products and top-selling items. Try them today. naturallyitsclean.com/Steve. Again, that's naturallyitsclean.com/Steve. And there she is, one of the only human beings living today that I will allow to live edit and correct me. My beloved oldest daughter, Anastasia. How are you, sweetie?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Are you ready for 3 non-political questions?
I am ready.
All right, let's do it.
You want me to start?
That was awkward. I was waiting for it after the live.
That was extremely awkward.
All right, let's do the bumper.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's redo this.
We all have a cool song.
Who am I? Why am I here? Where am I going? Who am I? A search and a question of identity. Why am I here? A question of meaning and purpose. Where am I going? Question of destiny.
Some better than others.
What sort of morality or proto-morality would you expect to find in a chimpanzee troop?
Injecting some levity into the demise of Western civilization. It's 3 questions on the Steve Deace Show.
Yes, that was awkward, and it was totally my fault.
So incredibly awkward.
It was. It was. All right, let's get to it.
I'm ready now.
What are
I'm
we
just
doing?
going to ask. I'm just going to go right into it. Okay.
Okay.
So if you woke up and you are the only person left on the earth, what would you do?
Try to find out why.
Okay, besides, like, that's obvious. Like, besides that, like, do something a little bit funnier, a little bit more soundbitey.
Okay. Todd's going to hate me for this answer. I mean, absolutely hate me. And I'm going to hate myself for it, too. And I may deserve to be shot after this answer. Okay, but it's true, so I'm going to say it.
Okay.
Okay. You ever seen what's the Charlton Heston version? Is it the Omega Man where he's the last man on Earth?
Yeah, I think so.
And after the nuclear war, and everybody else that's left, or he thinks that everybody else that's left are like nucleified, zombies. Okay. Remember the scene where he goes into the theater and like watches the?
I've never seen it.
Okay. There's a scene where he goes. I mean, he's got a lot of time to kill and fill all day long. And so, like, you watch him as, what he does all day, when he thinks he's the last man on Earth. And one of the things he does is he goes into the theater and he's got it rigged to just watch some movies from his period of time. And I think it's the Woodstock movie, if I remember right, is what he watches, okay? But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out, are there any theaters? Are there any satellite networks still going? Any internet? Because, man, those are going to be some long days.
Oh, my God. Thank you, God, for this moment.
It's true.
That of raw, unfiltered honesty.
I don't think he's doing it for effect.
No, I mean, I would need to know because, dude, those are long days. And just me and nothing else.
What's the first movie you'd watch?
Whatever was available. I'd want to take inventory what's available. I'd plan it out,
Oh my God.
like so I wouldn't run out in a month.
So conceivably, if you went to a theater, they only have what's playing in theaters now.
That's what I'd want to know. Like,
you could be screwed.
When everybody left, did they leave the internet on?
I mean, the Barbie movie.
YouTube and
you
stuff.
Want to watch that for the rest of your days?
I don't know. That's what I'd want to know. I mean, because that would drive me insane. Just me and my own thoughts every day, all by myself. I would drive
you and your own thoughts are driving me insane right now.
So that is probably the first thing that I would do. Yeah.
I'm so completed and destroyed by that at the same time. Oh.
What's your answer, Erzin?
Food?
Well, I'm not too worried about that. Everybody's gone. So there's all kinds of food.
Is there?
Yeah, I would assume. There's still refrigerators and freezers. I mean, I have no competition. Everybody's gone. I can just go raid someone's home where they used to live, someone's restaurant where they used to cook. I mean, they're gone. I'm more concerned about when it's just me in my own head. What goes on the rest of the time without any human contact? I mean, what would I think? What would I do all day long? It would drive me in because I cannot shut my brain down.
Todd's microphone did that thing again. Your microphone is not working.
Really?
Did Todd's microphone just die?
Yeah, did that thing. Oh, now it's back.
All right, there we go.
Hello.
Okay.
You'd become Mystery Science Theater 3000 with you'd find 2 robot companions and just snarky comments about films and hopefully record it for posterity.
I do know if YouTube was left up, and Facebook was left up, my YouTube and Facebook engagements would not be any lower than they are right now because of the amount of censorship I get. So that'd be cool.
I would walk.
Yeah.
I would keep
walk the earth.
I would keep moving. There's you don't know what you don't know in that immediate environment. So you want to go out and find the truth, it's out there. You got to go find it.
Well, that was what I said first.
That was good.
I said I'd want to know why. And I would assume I wouldn't know why by just sitting still. I'd have to go find out. You told me I couldn't answer like that. Then you looked at him and said, that was a great answer.
Well, it sounded really good coming from him.
That's because we just endured what he said.
I want the record to show my initial inclination was, I got to know what happened. My daughter said, well, Ever, that's obvious. Pick something fun. Okay. And then I gave you something fun. You wrecked me for it and then gave my answer. And she said, that's a really great answer.
Hey, Anna, can you repeat the question?
Do you really actually want me to?
Yes, please.
Okay, if you woke up and were the only person left on the earth, what would you do?
Well, first of all, that sounds awesome. Secondly...
You set them up for that. That's it.
Secondly, I would miss, obviously, Bella and Ben.
And now the Jesus juke.
Yeah, I would
the
miss
rest
them.
Of us didn't miss our families.
Yeah, you guys didn't even mention us.
I said I want to find out what happened. That's kind of an all-encompassing answer.
Anyways, keep going, Aaron. So you'd miss your family.
I would miss my family, but I would pack up my backpack with Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, and Chronicles of Narnia. Grab whatever, preserved food I could. Grab my AR-15 and my box of ammo, and I would start walking west.
That was good too. I liked all of those.
I want to end up in the Rockies and live my days out as a mountain man.
Okay, my next question for you guys. What is a crazy...
Somebody else is answering first this time. All right? Good.
Okay, what is a... Okay, let me finish this question before everybody says the same answer at the same exact time. What is a crazy conspiracy that you guys believe it cannot be anything related to COVID? I knew I was going to have to put that in. So what is a crazy conspiracy theory that you guys do believe or maybe think that there's some truth to?
Who wants to go first other than me?
Peak oil theory. I think that's a conspiracy theory.
Oh, that we would run out of oil?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of stuff going on.
That it's not a renewable resource, basically?
Yeah, beneath
God only gave us a certain amount of it?
Correct.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of stuff going on under our feet that we can't possibly understand or know or even find out because it's very difficult. It's very difficult to do so.
One of the wealthiest and most successful investors I have known and ran his own investment house. He's retired now on his own private island in Hawaii. He actually agrees with Aaron on that. He thinks he had told me for years he thought peak oil. He's probably listening right now, so shout out. He thought peak oil was a complete and total scam. Yeah, he agreed with you on that. So go ahead.
Well, Epstein didn't kill himself.
Is that even crazy though?
Yeah, that's an obvious.
Is that even crazy?
That's why is it? Who's it obvious to?
Like everybody.
Okay. Pretty much everybody. Yeah. I think pretty much everybody knows that Epstein didn't kill himself.
Gosh, I wish that were true. I don't think so. I don't think they do.
Okay.
Well, let me keep linking it. Yes, but the depths, linked to Sound of Freedom, linked to Ukraine, the connectivity. This is not just Epstein. Epstein Island isn't on an island. This is a global. Mel Gibson actually says he's going to be part of a documentary about the behind Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
That level.
Dad?
My problem is coming up with a conspiracy that would be considered crazy that I do believe. I absolutely believe in the Operation Paperclip stuff when it comes to the media. I absolutely believe in that. That video. Actually, I'm getting my operations mixed up. Paperclip is when we brought the Nazi scientist in. I think I had the wrong name. But the idea, though, of infiltrating media for one singular corporate message, I absolutely believe in that. There's just too much evidence. that shows that it's obvious and true. And the fact that no amount of viewer, reader, listener, commercial market pressure causes them to show any self-awareness at all, that goes against human nature. Human nature is to buckle unless you have some form of assurance or insurance. All right? So, how come Christians haven't buckled at the threat of persecution for centuries? Because they had an assurance that they were insured for all of eternity, that this wasn't the end, that this death was actually the beginning of your existence, not really the end of it. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So what would compel all of these entities to resist all of the market pressure and forces that are obviously aligned against what they continue to do with media? They would need some form of assurance or insurance that they can overcome and override and ignore and shun market forces and customer pressure. There's only a couple of entities that have the amount of power and money to provide such assurance, and they're corporations and the government, particularly if they're aligned together. So that would be one for me. All right, before you get to your third and final one, a reminder about our friends at Relief Factor before we check out here today. If you are struggling with too much chronic pain in your body, probably means you've got too much inflammation in your body. So why not check out the all-natural anti-inflammatory that was created by doctors who can prescribe drugs, but it is drug-free. Because why? Well, you want to limit sometimes. Sometimes you can't. If you got a clinical issue, you just need to take your meds. But if you're dealing with things of chronic variety, sometimes if you over-medicate with some of the things we make today, you can put a lot of strain on your other organs in your body. And so if you can treat it naturally, that's the optimal situation. And that's what they try to do with Relief Factor. They're so confident that it will be the natural remedy for your chronic pain that they offer you the first 3 weeks at a really low price, just $20. Why? Because about 70% of the people who try the 3-week kickstart end up sticking around long term because of the results they see in 3 weeks or less. So why not take that bet? See if that next person, that next success story might be you. Go to relieffactor.com. That's relieffactor.com. Or you can call them at 800-4RELIEF. That's the number 800-4RELIEF or relieffactor.com.
I also just have to say really quick that my conspiracy theory, Dad, I know that you already know this, but I truly believe that mattress stores are like secret drug rings. Do you remember when we talked about this in the kitchen?
I do remember when you were a kid, yes.
I just had to throw that out there because
the drugs get smuggled in through the mattresses?
Okay, because who actually goes to mattress stores on the reg? And then there's so many cars there. And then they the one by our house blacks out their window and then they're like, big sale today. And I'm like, does that mean it's
every third letter is a code? Yes.
Okay, I just had to say that. That was my thing I had to add really quick. Okay. And then my last question, just for giggles, I thought I'd ask this because I was thinking about it today. Because, Dad, growing up, you taught us these jokes, so then we still make them today. We still make your mom jokes today because of you. So I have...
Because of you.
I have rate these Yo Mama jokes on a scale of 1 to 10.
Okay.
10 being really good. That would kind of sting.
Okay.
And 1 being...
That makes you look even worse.
Yeah, that's embarrassing.
Gotcha.
Okay.
All right.
Number 1. Yo Mama so poor, the ducks throw bread at her.
That's
really
spicy.
Good. Yeah. I'm going to give that a 9.5. I like it quite a bit. Made me laugh. Yes.
I'll give it a 10 on the scale we're allowed to use for this show because I think a lot of good Yo Mama jokes have to delve into R-rated.
Yes.
So
I went to an amusement park a couple of years ago, and I was waiting to ride a roller coaster behind 2 teenage boys. And all they did the whole time we were in line, the whole time, for 20 minutes, is went back and forth with Your Mama jokes. And they never repeated each other one time. It was truly one of the most amazing things I've seen in my entire life.
Did you give them a hug before they departed?
I wanted to, actually.
I feel like we're family.
Yes. Your parents must be proud. Yes.
Okay. My second one. Yo Mama so poor, she chases the garbage truck with a grocery list.
Not as good as the first one. I gotta give that a 2. Yeah. If you didn't say the first one, you might get a chuckle. It won't make you look bad, but it's lame in comparison. 2, 3 tops.
Okay.
All right.
And then the last one. Yo Mama So Poor, Nigerian princes wire her money.
I like that one a lot. I'm going to give that a 10.
8.5.
I'm going to give that one a 10. I like that one the best,
I still like the
I think.
Ducks one better, but that's right there, 8.
What I love is that we went last segment from the church being derelict in its duty, and we closed this hour
totally came off
with
the rails.
ranking your mama jokes.
Totally came off the rails.
Is there another program in America that delivers that gamut of content to you in an hour or less? I think not, and that's probably why other people are more successful than we are. They know better than this. Yes. Thank you, Princess. Good
Thanks,
to see you.
guys.
All right. Gentlemen, final thoughts before we sign off here today in the next 10 seconds.
I'm going to tell you the best mama joke I ever told.
Okay.
Or ever said. Off the air, though.
Oh, off the air.
Off
Okay.
the air.
All right, off the air. Okay.
My T-shirt summed up last half hour. One nation under God. It's got to be under God first, though.
Amen. All right, you guys, we'll see you tomorrow at noon to 2 Eastern, right after Glenn Beck, right here on Blaze TV. Until then, John 3:17.